Hello, and welcome back to the Wizards Respite Sanctorum, the show where we dive into all things TTRPG. Today, we're going to be having a lot of fun. We're going to be talking to the GM's perspective about our players, our characters, the kind of archetypes that you see at the table. Not the characters they're personifying, but the character that they are. But as always, I am not alone. I am joined with my good friend Zachariah. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm excited to be back. Sorry, everybody, it took so long. I am officially a school bus driver now, so we should be able to start getting these things out on a regular basis again, which very excited to talk about tabletop role-playing games again.
And just congratulations, by the way, on getting all of that
Thanks,
stuff
sir.
through, Zach.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I know you've been pretty crazy, and my day-to-day, we do this as a passion, and sometime we're hoping that, someday we'll be able to just talk about TTRPGs and play them and make them all day long, but right now we gotta pay the bills.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
my work's been pretty hectic for me too.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
But yeah, so
But enough about work. Time
that's
to
right.
nerd.
Let's jump into the fun stuff, man.
Right,
Let's talk.
right.
This is the best hobby in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have some fun. So today's topic, character archetypes. We have seen so many, not character, player archetypes. We've seen so many people at our tables over the years. Some of the games that you have told me about you GMing have had, like, I don't know, like an army of players. It sounds like, kind of cycling through your house. Yeah.
Played with a lot of people. I like the idea of archetypes. I like the idea of giving some people some tips on managing these archetypes, because you really never know what's going to show up at your table sometimes, especially if you're playing with people who have never played with you, are new to the group, friends of friends. You just don't know what you're in for.
I mean, I'm just about to actually have a new player at my home table. My 5e table here at my house is about to get a new player in it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the type of archetype she is. So this is a good refresher for me, because I'm about to be looking for, okay, who is this person that I've never met before, who is a friend of a friend? What is she looking for out of the game? And that's what we're kind of talking about, archetypes. Why are they sitting at this table?
Right.
What is their personality type? What is their play style type?
Well, and if I might add one thing, remember, as a game master, it's your job to make them have fun, not your job to go fight with them. You know what I mean? Every person playing role-playing games wants something different out of the experience, and you have to try and give them that. And, I mean, otherwise you shouldn't be DMing. That's not necessarily... It sounds more standoffish than I meant it to be, but, I mean, that's the idea behind GMing, is you're trying to entertain the people who are at the table, and they're all going to want something different,
Absolutely. There's a philosophy that I brought in really early on. I adapted to being a GM from my dad's philosophy of being a host. My dad had this saying he would teach us when we were kids. A good host tries to make sure that their guest always feels at home. A good guest always tries to remember they are not at home. And as a player and as a GM, I kind of approach that in the same way. A good GM tries to make their players feel like having fun. They're at home. This is their world. This is their environment, because that helps them immerse. That helps with the nature of the game. A good player remembers the GM's putting a lot of work into this.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to work within, the narrative that the GM has overarchingly built, because if they color outside the lines too far, the GM is scrambling. They're trying to figure out what to do with you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my philosophy. Right now, I think what we're talking about is having tools for the GM to help that relationship, help understand how to be a good GM in the nature of providing a world that and a table that your players are all under the same impression of, but also are getting something out of it, right? So we're going with archetypes. These are the types of like people that you typically will often find at the table. And what I mean by that is their motivation for playing, their disposition, what they're looking for to get out of the game, why they're sitting there, and things that they enjoy about these types of games, and what they're looking to accomplish out of these types of games. So what we're going to try and do is, some pressure points, some stressors about having these different types of personalities, because all of them have good points and bad points, things that, mesh or maybe conflicts at the table with the GM or other players, but also things that you can really like nurture, out of that player and help really build a cool story and a cool game day. Be you ready to jump into this, Zach?
Yeah, let's start.
Okay, let's how do you feel about starting with the power gamer?
Oh, totally okay with that. Master. I have the build master, yeah. Mr. Philbilly. If he's listening, shout out to him. This is a character, if I'm not mistaken, this is an archetype that this player likes the numbers. They like to see what they can do with this system. They're not necessarily a rules lawyer per se, but they're very aware of the system, and they want to build really interesting character statistics behind their stories and their characters as well.
Yeah. That's my definition of a power gamer.
And they want to level. They want to get levels. They want to get experience points. They want to make their numbers go up.
Loot, treasure, guns, swords. Mm-hmm. They love that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there are great things about that type of archetype, that kind of focus from that character. And they're not hard to work with. If you know your system really well, you know how, like, what they're going to accomplish.
Yeah.
When you're trying to build these things out, you know how to challenge them. One thing a GM, I think a balancing act for GMs, is finding a way to challenge your character without, like, your players, without making dead ends or frustrating them to the degree where they don't feel like they can do anything.
Yeah.
The power player is not hard for that.
Well, and the thing with the power player that you want to avoid is nerfing their combinations, or making them feel weaker. They're there to feel stronger. Like it's one of the big things that they're getting out of the game for whatever reason. That's their motivation. They want to feel stronger than maybe they are in real life, and that's why they build these characters so good. The positive and the negative of these players as a game master for me is exactly the same, and that is this character will break your system faster. This person will break your system faster than your head will spin. You'll think, everything's nice and balanced, and then they'll walk in the door and they'll be like, okay, so if I just do these 3 things, I get 9 attacks at 400 points of damage because they triple and they double, and it's like a double whammy. Like for me, I do a lot of homebrews. I do a lot of written RPGs, as I have plugged on here many times. So it's nice to have somebody who could just walk in and be like, okay, this is how people are going to make your system insane. Yeah. And you can either decide to try and fix that or not fix that. But at the same time, when you're just trying to play with them, it's obnoxious when the guy could just walk in and go, this is how I'm gonna break your game. Like, I've made jokes about it on Astral Drive that Philbilly is incredibly hard to challenge when it comes to a fight or anything, like any sort of physical confrontation. Which, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little ranty here. Feel free to cut me off at any time, but has led me to kind of shift some perceptions with a player like this, with Philbilly. I try to give him, like, his real challenges. Like, yes, he gets the fights. And I will put a fight in front of him that I think I've built up, and he will whoop the crap out of it, and he will smile. But but the challenges for this character I like to throw are the things that have no bearing on the system. And I tend to think that's good, especially if you have a good power game player who also wants to roleplay, who also values the role playing, which Phil Billy does. I think that, like, you get a double whammy here because you say, all right, see, your build is amazing. I can't touch your build. However, I'm going to give you this over here, which you have to decide to not use your build. You know, like the one scene in which the really racist sheriff was really coming at him hard, and he had to decide not to fight him. You know what I mean? Which he could. He could have owned everybody in the field and walked away with a smile on his face, but he had to decide not to. And I think that, like, that kind of stuff is interesting, is how I tend to, like, challenge power gamers a little bit more, because I don't know, like, halfway through my career, like, I always have a power gamer somehow. Always. There was people before Phil.
They're common.
Yeah, there's always one that's just like, look at this combo. And it's like, great. Okay. And, like, I think I came to a realization somewhere in my mid-30s that I'm just never going to beat them. Like, my brain doesn't work that way. I'm never going to beat them. Like, I'm always trying to make a character, like, challenging but not too scary, whereas they're trying to make scary characters. So, like, my character is always going to get murdered by that. So, like, I think that, like, I think that at the end of the day, I had to shift my perception, and that's when I started challenging them in different ways, like challenging them in ways that had nothing to do with their character build. Doesn't mean you take away the option for them to be badasses, because they want to be badasses, man. You got to let them be badasses, but you just put something else in front of them.
I think that's a great tactic. And I'm gonna throw a little something out here for everybody who hasn't watched necessarily the Astral Drive and has seen all of the episodes. We've been playing with Phil on that game for a really long time, and one thing I noticed is that he is so honest about his dice. Like, I can see him, like, when his dice screw up, when he rolls low, I can feel it through the screen. Like,
he can't lie. He has no, like, he's got a poker face when he's playing poker. He does not have one when he's playing role-playing games. Like, you can see it in the screen. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can feel it in your heart, man. Like, that. Yeah, you really can. His shoulders slump, and, like, he's like, oh no, you know, like, I want him to lie at this point. He's like, because, well, come on, Phil, man, it's okay.
Yeah.
But, he's so honest about it and so point, but this is how you know he's a real good power gamer. He still pulls through because he's built his character so well. And he's really statistic and tactical with his build. So he not only has built his character, he knows how and when and why to manipulate his character's skills in the best possible way. He is a great strategist. So he still makes it out of a bad situation, a bad roll work out in his favor.
Especially when he's with a bunch of other people, because then he'll be like, he'll advise. He'll be like, okay, now if you do this with that point, then I'll do this with that point, and he'll do this with this point, and then it'll all flow into murder for the bad guys. Yeah. I think there is this old saying with role-playing games that it's the only game you can never win. You're not winning. There's no winning in it. Power gamers are winning. They are in it to win. That is for 100%. They are in it to win. There is a competitive nature in every one of them that, like, they don't want to go into that battle to lose. Personally, I'm kind of weird. When I'm playing a game, I tend to like to lose. Like, I like to lose. I mean, I don't love to see my characters die, but when they die, it gives me finality. When one of my characters faces hardships and fails, that makes everything harder for them. It makes it more interesting to see if they can't come back. I don't want to lose every time. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to lose every time. But yeah, power gamers, they want to win every fight as fast and as efficiently as humanly possible regardless of the storyline involved, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. There's not. And like you said, like there is pros and cons, to a certain degree of depending on how that meshes with, the setting. And as a GM, it's really like about how you're going to work with their desires. And one thing that a really good, useful tool for a GM to walk in to an interaction with the power gamer is providing them narrative, like in-game storyline motivation that builds their character, that gives them opportunities. So, if there's a MacGuffin that supercharges characters and you can weave that into a very, meaningful storyline where maybe, this character needs to go seek the sword that was his ancestor's sword, and it's going to build his character. It gives him a stat boosts or whatever, but it's also part of his character's narrative. That's a great way to weave in, and that's one of the things I like about power characters. I can give them loot, I can give them reasons, I can give them level ups.
They're very easily rewarded.
They're very easily rewarded, and I can make it part of the story. So that makes it more meaningful to them on a narrative point of view, on a storyline point of view, while still providing that itch, like that need for building up the stats and building the character. And that's as the GM, that's one of the things I really value about the power player is it gives me a very clean cut way of integrating story and mechanics.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So okay, power player.
I think we tackled it pretty good.
Yeah. We got that one. Let's move on to maybe one of the more challenging ones.
Okay.
Rules lawyer.
Oh man.
That's a tough one.
Oh, it's so tough. And I'm going to tell you, here's how you know you've got a rules lawyer. When they do something and then you tell them they can't do something and you move on to somebody else and they quietly frown and reach for a book. And you're like, man, 5 minutes from now, I'm going to be in an argument for 30 minutes about why he couldn't do this, even though the rules say he can do this, or she. And it's, oh man, rules lawyers are so frustrating. I've played with a lot of rules lawyers when I was back in high school. What's even more frustrating that when I was in high school, I had rules lawyers. I had a player who was a rules lawyer in World of Darkness, which World of Darkness is a fucking insane system that's hard to understand anyway. So like for him to reach for books, I'm like, okay, here we go. It's gonna be a fucking existential debate for like 40 minutes for the soul of the game. It's very, rules lawyers are very frustrating. Very frustrating.
They can be very hard. I do see there is one pro. You got the con. That's my exact same con, pretty much. It can slow down the game. My way to mitigate that as best I can is saying, okay, just being super clear at the beginning of sessions, at the beginning of campaigns. Rules are very much there. I am a human being. Sometimes I forget them. Sometimes you remember them. When we have a ruling in a moment, and we move on, I'm okay with changing that ruling on the next scenario if there's a rule that I screwed up on or whatever, but there's no retroactive ruling and we have to keep the pace of the game going. So if I make a mistake, you make a mistake, I'm not going to hold you. You're going to make a mistake. I'm not going to hold you as a player accountable for your mistakes later on. I'm not going to go back and say, well, your character would have died because you forgot about this one system mechanic that doesn't work this way, or you misread a rule. So now you have to kill your character out of gameplay. I'm never going to do that. So don't do that to me.
Right.
Don't come to me, and say, well, in the middle of a game, when I'm in the middle of a combat situation or a scenario with another player, that, well, actually this rule, I will definitely address that with you for the next ruling moving forward. It's always, moving forward, never proact or afterwards, after the fact. how I will handle the more challenging aspects of the rules lawyer. The one thing that is great about the rules lawyer is there's sometimes an encyclopedia of rules.
You're stealing my positive, man. You're stealing my positive. They are great for like sometimes I love having them because then I don't even have to read the book. Like I can just be like, hey, right. How do I attack? Oh, you do this, this, and this. Thanks. And then they're great for that. They're great as like almost like personal assistants to the GM, and they will love that. I don't know one rules lawyer player who does not like love it when a GM turns to them and asks them a rule. Oh, you could just see them light up. I think the other thing is too, and again, GMs out there. Anybody out there, I have a life philosophy that I put into motion many years ago for myself, and so far it has worked. And that is, when you cannot swim upstream, don't swim upstream. Whenever it is possible, go with the flow. And like, same with rules lawyers. Rules lawyers, if you go to war with them, you're going to grind your game to halt. It is not fun. So you have to try to find a way to make them flow with the stuff. They're the guys who are sitting there. The rules lawyers are the people who buy role-playing game books that they are never going to play just because they want to read the system. Like, that is the kind of person you're dealing with. I knew a guy like this. Like, he didn't have time to play anywhere near the amount of TTRPGs he had on hand. And he was talking about buying 3 more. And the reason was he wanted to read the systems. Like, he doesn't play them. He just reads the systems for when he might in the future play them. That's the person you're dealing with here. So, like, they don't want that time to be wasted. They don't want, when they're finally sitting down to play one of these games, which they don't get to play them all, they don't want that time to be like, all that time reading doesn't matter because the game master decided whatever I say goes. And don't get me wrong, the game master is whatever I say goes. It should be. That's the point of the game master, but you also have to give a little. You have to play at least a little bit within the rules, you know? So don't go, when you've got a rules lawyer, don't throw everything out the window. Like, give them some wins and try to go with the flow, because like you said, when you need somebody to give you a rule or quote something back, like, what's the damage for being fully submersed in lava? They're going to know it. Like, and you're not going to have to worry about thumbing through the book, which is really nice.
Another real great tool that I love when I recently ran a one shot with a couple of players. A couple of them, they're the best case scenario rules lawyer. They're not the argumentative type at all, but a couple of them I was like sick on session 0, like when we were building characters. I was in pain. I could not finish that session with them, and it wasn't the game session, but I had some characters that were struggling a bit with their builds, and I turned to my rules lawyer and said, please help them, please finish this out for me. I just can't do it. I'm dying right now.
And they did it. Yeah,
they did it great. I had no problems on game day.
The thing with a rules lawyer is they'd be a game master if they, I don't want to say if they had the capability, but like if they felt they were capable of writing a story. You know what I mean? Right. Like they would be the game master, but they're not. And that's the problem. You're dealing with another game master brain sitting at the table, and they're thinking about how they would run the scenario, you know? I think that the other thing is, too, I've really only ever met one rules lawyer that was, like, truly, like, get out of my house, you know? But most of them, if you sit down at the beginning and you spell out, like, hey, it's not going to be perfect. Whatever I say goes. We can talk about it later. You know, they're usually okay with that because you're giving them new rules. like if you give them new rules, they like rules, like, so good. But like, you have to give them the rules ahead of time, you know?
Right. Yeah. They're very much color inside the lines, which is fine. That's how you make a beautiful picture.
Right. They don't like not knowing the situation, you know?
All right, I think we got that one down.
Yeah, that was good. We're killing them.
Got that. Next one. This is kind of a fun one. I think we were both saying that this is kind of one that we feel fall into that category very, very well when we are players, and that is the actor.
Yeah, yeah.
The person that gets into his character really is there for the role playing, really is there for the building the story in the moment with the other players, with the GM, with the NPCs, and personifying who they are right then and there. That's a fun one to have at the table. That's they're the ones that definitely help the story along quite a bit, and will definitely create a atmosphere of a narrative that all of the other players can fit into as well, because they're acting with the other players as much as they are with the GM and with the world's environment.
Yeah.
So they draw everybody into the story, which is great for the GM. The one downside I can sometimes see with some actors, sometimes they can be a little bit of attention hogs.
Yeah, they can. I fit into that one.
That's the
just
one
can't shut up. Yeah.
You have to, because, and sometimes it's, I mean, like, I can be I'm definitely an actor, I think, when I'm in the moment, and I think I'm also a GM, so I try to temper some of the that aspect of it whenever I'm a player. But the thing is, they get so into the moment, they can't give up the reins almost. Does that make sense?
It really is. And like, okay, so this one's going to be hard for me because I consider myself an actor. So this is really like critiquing myself in a lot of ways and trying to tell people how to deal with me.
There with you, man.
Which I don't know how anybody deals with me on a daily basis. But so like the actor is the guy who has the skill Spanish because of a summer abroad, not because it's ever going to help him in the story, or like the character who has a point in legal because he did a semester in law school. Like, it's the character who does not give a shit about the scores, with the exception of the scores are telling the story. Everything's telling the story. Like, for me, I definitely identify, if I'm self-identifying my player archetype, it would be this. I could care less about the stats on most days. I like good stats, especially when I'm writing or game mastering. I like them, especially when they flow well. There's something really cool about them, especially if they simulate the thing that you're doing. There's just something so cool about feeling like you're in a kung fu dice when you're sitting in a kung fu fight when you're sitting in a garage rolling a bunch of dice. That's just like such an interesting thing. That being said, you could hand me a character sheet and be like, "This is your character." I'd be like, "Sure, let's do it." But I wouldn't ask you a question about the stats until I was playing. What I would be asking you about is, what are his motivations? What is his family life like? That's what I want to do. I want to play a character. I want an escape. I want to be somebody else for 2-4 hours, however long I'm playing. Like, that's what I'm playing for, is that to tell a story that only I can be a part of, while I am in no way a part of it. And I think that's really cool. That being said, I tend to not shut up. I think anybody who has listened to Ordo Scriptorium and me as Preston has noticed that Preston tends to dominate the conversation every time he's in the story, which is ridiculous. And like, I can feel myself doing it because I keep thinking of things to say as Preston and can't resist saying them, whereas I should have shut up a long time ago and let somebody else do something. I think that like the other downside of these characters, these players, is, yes, overall, they will help you tell a story, but they are the first ones to die because they don't understand the game and they don't know how it works. And like, even when they do, they don't really care. So like, that's when the guy with the point in linguistics because of his summer abroad gets murdered because he didn't put 2 more points into his gunplay skill, like the thing he actually needed. I think that like, I have had more characters die than I can count because I made the character based on the character, and somebody was like, you really should put something higher than that. And I was like, no, that's not who he is. And then I got murdered. I think that like and that can cause a problem. That can be really frustrating as a game master. I know, because I've played with actors who get killed. And it's like, you're not supposed to be dead here. I don't want you to be dead here. I had a lot of story more to tell, but you can't fucking roll to save your life. And and you've got no stats to back up your shitty rolls, so you are dead. Yeah, and that's another thing. I don't know about other actors, but from my experience with you and me, we roll terrible. I don't know what it is. Luck hates our fucking asses. So like there's just constant bad rolls coming for us. It's also why we're good game masters, because the players always win. I think that like I can't stay alive to save my life. I think that is, I mean, you even think about, well, I don't want to ruin it because it's not out yet, but let's say my most recent death. That death happened on one roll that I rolled a 1 on, and that person rolled a 25 on. Like, so it's one of those things where it's like, it shouldn't have possibly killed you, but you're dead. So that's the actors for me. They definitely, and just like now, I've been talking for way too long. Actors are narcissists. I don't know what to say.
You get into the moment. The actors are in the moment. That's what we love about them. They bring us with them into the moment. But then the moment doesn't end.
That
is sometimes the case. That is sometimes the case. The moment just goes on and on forever. And that's, I mean, it's the good and the bad about them. All of these players, you have to navigate them a little bit. And with actors, like, asking, one of the good ways to navigate an actor that does have a tendency to go on a little bit too long is finding ways of asking them to interact directly with individual other players.
Right.
If you can get them, if you can just, even if you have to like meta it a little bit as the GM and just say, well, Bonnie, how do you feel about, Preston right now? Preston, how do you feel about this right now?
Yeah.
And
cut off the actors. Force the other conversation to happen. You're right. You're right.
Force and use them. Use them as a freaking tool, because they're a great resource to draw, especially if you have maybe a shyer player at the table.
Oh yeah.
A quieter player.
Yeah.
You force like a little bit, and you don't need to like, when I say force, I don't really want to say, I'm not advising you to strong arm anybody.
Right.
But give them an opportunity to engage with that shy player.
Yeah.
And you're going to see some magic happen.
Yeah, an actor is always thinking about how to engage with the other players, always, and putting little things in. An actor is the person who is like, you're in the middle of a story, and the actor's like, hey, hold on a second, can I monologue for 5 minutes? Like that's the actor. Like, I want to tell you this story about something that happened on the side. I want to describe to you like he's the player that when you ask all the players what they were doing in their downtime, and they're like, oh, I hung out with my kid, and the other one's like, oh, I hung out with my wife, and then it gets the actor and he's like, I went on a 4-day coke binge, and I became introspective about my parents, and then I wrote a poem. I actually wrote the poem that I'm gonna give to a person. Like, that's the actor who's like I collectively feel like any table I've ever been at should roll their eyes the minute I start talking. Because, in my head, I am. Yes, I do think actors do really good at bringing stuff out. I think it's an actor will happily, put themselves into other situations. So if you set them up with that with other players, you will get that reaction out of them. They're really good at bringing stuff out of other players. They're they want to be pretending to be somebody else,
Yeah, and the best actors, and honestly most actors, almost all actors will do this. The best actors are very intuitive and sensitive to their other players when they're in that moment, which is freaking phenomenal, because they're looking at a person,
Yeah.
and they know that that other person is personifying someone, and they're somehow able to simultaneously recognize the player and the character at the same time and evaluate what the player wants for the character,
Yeah.
and then meld that into the moment
Yes.
and
Yeah.
make their own character the person that catalyzes
Yeah.
that moment, what everybody wants in that situation, what flows with the narrative, how to draw those moments out of their fellow it's freaking phenomenal if you use them
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
um
statistically they're useless, but storyline wise they're great. I mean, if they're really, really good and they've been doing it for a really, really long time, it's like having a game master playing a character in a scene, and that's one of the best parts about them. Yes,
yeah, yeah.
but they're also assholes. They're narcissistic assholes.
um let's jump in. I think we got the actor down.
Yeah,
Are
we do.
you up
We do.
for jumping into the casual hanger honor, the casual gamer, the guy that shows up for friendship? He's there for the
Right.
magic of his pals.
Right. It's nerd poker for him. I think that I like the casual player. The casual player is an interesting perspective, and I think of all the players I've played with. One of the reason, I used to call myself the Pied Piper of nerds, because like if you talk to me long enough, I'm going to get you to do something way nerdier than you were expecting to do before you talk to me. And I've gotten a lot of people who have never played RPGs before to try them. I'm very proud of that. So I've played with casual gamers a lot, people who have never played the game before. I think the casual gamer is fun because they fit this really interesting role of like, you can kind of relive your wonderment when you played the first time through them, no matter how old they are, because they're kind of especially if they enjoy it, because they're kind of discovering this new thing. I would say the negatives of a casual gamer are, at least in the beginning, or a casual or a beginner, I think is almost a better way to say. These guys and gals are never going to make characters that aren't them. They're going to make characters that are
Right.
exceedingly just them with stats, because they don't quite understand what they're doing yet. They're going to react to stimuli much more like what they would react to than maybe the character. You're not going to get an actor here. You're not going to get somebody like pulling a scene out of it. They're also it's going to be hard to have them. They're going to make a lot of faux pas. Like they're going to not talk in character. They're going to have meta conversations that they shouldn't be having, a lot of stuff like that. I would say for handling them, I mean, there is positives to them. The positives of them is that they're an anime hero. They're a blank slate. You can put anything in front of them and build the story around them, and you'll still have some fun because they're this character that, even if their character isn't, they are a fish out of water, kind of having to fight their way through something. And that's a really intriguing story. It's one of my favorite stories. My favorite movie of all time is Big Trouble in Little China. Potentially the greatest fish out of water story that has ever existed. I think that like you get that with a casual gamer. A casual gamer is in a new world, in a new experience, doesn't really understand anything. I find it really fun to base entire first plot lines around casual gamers because the other players around them are experienced enough to know their roles, and the casual gamer then feels like, holy crap, I am the hero of the whatever,
Yeah.
That being said, I think that like, man, I was going somewhere with that, and then the train just hit the mountain on that one. So I'm gonna let you talk for a little bit.
So I mean, I'm right there with you on, basically all of those points. To go a little bit deeper on a couple of things, there's one other thing that like for a GM walking in and having a casual gamer come in. There often are like new gamers. And the reason being is exactly what you just said. They if they're a casual gamer, they haven't necessarily sunk their teeth in enough to really get absorbed into a different archetype. Not always. Some people really are just there just to hang out with their friends and have fun. The challenge that GMs will often have with casual gamers is knowing how to, integrate them into the game more.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a challenge because they don't know themselves how to integrate more into the game because they're casual. They're there for friends. They're there for the social time, and they're not really even thinking about all of the different things that they want to get out of this character or this game setting or this world or the rules or whatever. They're just like, yeah, I want to be with my buddies.
Yeah,
and that's okay. They want to be with their buddies. Throw random stuff at them all the time. They're probably not going to be great with rules, so I wouldn't say, don't treat them like a rules lawyer, but you can treat them like a lot of the other archetypes and just have fun with whatever the heck they're doing because they're just there to have fun.
Yeah.
They're probably going to goof off with being an actor. You throw them in a very social scene, they're going to goof off with it. Being a power gamer, they're probably not really a power gamer, but throw them into a very mechanic heavy situation where their character needs to figure out a bunch of stuff with their skills or their combat scenarios, a complex combat scenario. They're gonna do something random and goofy because they're a casual gamer and they're just there to have fun. They're gonna be the guy that jumps into the monster's mouth and tries to carve their way out of the stomach because they're not that worried about their character. They're goofballs, and also, one thing I love about casual gamers, some of my favorite moments from casual gamers is when they surprise the crap out of you. Because they will be sitting there listening to everything, wide eyes, giant grins on their face because they're having fun, they're with their buddies, and all of a sudden inspiration hits them. You weren't expecting it because you're dealing with the rules lawyer, you're dealing with the actor, and now this guy comes out with, I'm going to use this, and this, and I'm going to do it with a giant epic Conan scream coming out of my heart. And you're just like, did that just come out of you?
That's what's casual great. Gamer? Yeah. The casual gamer is like almost every one of the casual gamers that I've ever played with are now something else. You know what I mean? Like their archetype has moved into something else. But the casual gamers are the ones who are going to surprise you the most. They're the ones who are going to, because you're not going to see it coming. I've had many casual gamers who are just like, all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna stab Joda in the back. I'm sorry, what? Like, well, I'm a thief, right? Yeah, I'm a thief, and I've been waiting for a moment. He's got all the gold. Everybody else is fighting, so I'm just gonna stab him and take the gold. Like, oh, like they'll blow up a game so fast.
Yeah.
And you won't see it coming. It'll be sessions and sessions and sessions of something standard, and then all of a sudden they'll just do something crazy. And I love that about them. They're that kind of powder keg that you never know when it's going to explode, and you never know when they're going to blossom into whatever new type of archetype they are. And I think that's I love watching that happen. There's a guy I work with now. I'm not going to call him out because he might be listening. And I don't know how much he, and other coworkers might be listening. I don't know how much he wants other people to know, but he's younger than me quite a bit. But we got in this long conversation. He just started playing Dungeons and Dragons I think a year or two ago, and now he's reading the Forgotten Realms books, and he's got the character sheet on his phone and whatnot, and I think that that kind of stuff is just really cool. I love to hear that when somebody gets into that and it's just oh yeah, we're playing this and this is great and I'm this, and then they start reading the books and they start getting into the stuff. And I enjoy that. I enjoy that quite a bit.
Yeah. All right, I think we got our casual gamer archetype down.
Yeah.
So we had one setup, for the wild card.
The wild cards.
This is one where Zach and I really didn't talk about this one archetype, this one random player that we deal with or we have seen, and we're gonna throw that at each other to see how each other would handle or have handled that archetype in the past.
All right, you go first.
Are you ready for the wild card?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my wild card. This is one that's a little bit newer to me. I didn't get this when I was younger playing this game. Yeah. And the reasons why I think will be very apparent to you, Zach, here in just a moment. It is the flirt.
Oh.
Uh,
Oh.
it's kind of a
Okay.
subtype of the actor to a certain degree.
Okay.
But I'd say it's enough of a subtype that I've encountered. Because I've played with a lot of girls recently. And now these girls, like, I want to be very, very clear. These girls that are the flirts, their character, it's 100% with their character.
Right.
Not the player who's the flirt or the flirting with the GM or
nobody will accuse you of impropriety, sir.
Right. But also, like, I want to make it clear, like, this is the player at the table who loves the action adventure story with a romantic twist. You know, we've all seen those movies. We've all seen those books. Those are the types of movies and books that this player loves. And this is the type of story this player is looking for. Because, you know, this is their narrative. This is like, you know, like, my hero goes and gets the love interest, you know. That's how the story ends for them. It ends in a wedding or in a funeral if it's a tragedy. But one way or the other, that sort of love aspect is definitely part of the character's, the player's interest in building a story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, how would you have, like, what are your opinions on the flirt?
This is a weird one for me because I have always wanted to play with more ladies. That sounds gross, but you know what I mean? Like, just have more feminine player characters at my table. And I just very rarely in my life have had a chance to play with ladies. I just have rarely had. I think in all 43 years of life, I think we said something like 33 years of role-playing games. I think I've played with maybe 4 women as player characters, like, ever. Like, I just don't have that much experience with it. I did, however, play with a flirt once. I did. And she was just very flirty with all the NPCs, and it was very strange and very weird. I think what you got to remember is it's a game. As long as you understand and they understand that, you know what I mean? Right. Like that's the thing. I would say this, and I don't know what kind of territory I'm getting into here, but as an adult married man, if there was too much flirting going on at my I would have to have known that person for a really long time and trust them. Like, if it was somebody I was just regularly playing with and I was in a relationship, I'd be like, hey, like, because I totally allow flirting at the table. I like it when my characters fall in love. I like it when other people's characters fall in love. Like, I constantly flirt with my male players. Like, it's just part of the game as a game master. So, like, I don't disallow it. I think love, we've talked about love before on this podcast, and I think it's a huge motivating factor for a good character and a good story. That being said, if it is somebody just random there who's just flirting with me, I need to, like, make sure it's in game. Like, make sure they understand it's in game. Make sure that this is a game thing. Like, again, this is one of those things you never want to feel uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And if you're just like you can make a player uncomfortable, player can make you uncomfortable. Maybe have that discussion with them. You know, if it gets to that point. Other than that, with flirts, I think you flirt with them. Like, it just like any other RPG character, you give a player what they want. That's what you're there for. Like, as a game master, you're there to give them whatever fantasies they're living for. Well, fantasies probably isn't the right word in this particular situation, but you see what I'm saying. Like, you're there. You're there to make them happy. They're there for an escape. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't go describing any, like, you know, stuff, but, like, I would say that, like, yeah, flirt with them. Like, that's what they're there for. That's what they want out of their character. If their character's a flirt, then they're going to flirt with people, and you've got to understand that they are, you know?
Yeah. 100% agree. Yeah, you do have to watch that boundary. Like, it can be a little bit tricky.
It's tricky. Especially with a new, untested person. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. That's definitely probably the trickiest area. If you know
the
the person fairly well, like one flirt that I have, she's a flirt in her character very much, but like she's also playing at my table where her husband's sitting right there and my wife
right,
is sitting right there.
right, right.
So we are very like
That
obviously
was
clear with character.
that was the case that I was in. I was not married when I encountered my flirt. My flirt, however, was always at the table with her husband. So like,
Right, yeah,
it was just assumed like that if there's a problem here, that there would be a problem here. You know what I mean?
exactly.
And there just never was. I think that like I mean, if you're married to a flirt, you probably know they're going to be a flirt. Like
Yeah.
it is what it is. I think that like, it is a tricky situation though. But I've only, like I said, I've only encountered this like the one time. I've never really had a character do an absolute ton of flirting with me. But again, I think as a game master, sometimes you got to take it as a job. You clock in, you do a job, and that job at that particular time is flirting with your player. You know what I mean? And like as long as you keep it very clear that you're in character and flirting in character, like I would be a little bit cautious if the casual gamer showed up and started flirting with all of my characters. You know what I mean? Like the person who had never played before and is now flirting with all my characters. Okay, maybe there's something else here that I don't want to be a part of or that shouldn't be happening, you know?
Yeah.
But so that kind of stuff, like those kind of signs. But if it's a long-term RPGer who likes to play flirtatious characters and you're a long-term GM, you flirt with them. That's that, you know?
Yeah. And like one thing that I really like about the flirt archetype or character, it's a player who basically likes to like have that romance interest in her character's motivation. Give her that romance interest, then threaten them.
Yeah.
Threaten that love interest. That is the best.
It is the best.
You want to see an awesome moment?
Yeah.
You have this girl who at your case, because she's a player.
Or guy. Guys can be flirts too.
Or guy, that's true.
I want to point that out.
But you have this player at this table who's going after this guy or this girl or whoever they're interested in. That's their romance. They're very clearly flirting with that. And then your big bad comes in and kidnaps them or poisons them or curses them. And now you have to go on a mission to save their life. Man, you're going to have some awesome narrative there because that's what they want. They want to be the hero that gets the girl at the end or the hero that gets the guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's that story that they're looking. There's a subcategory of actor, but it's that story that they're looking for. The adventure with a twist of romance that ends in a marriage.
The Fabio cover art, like that's what they're looking for. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
I agree.
And it's a great MacGuffin to walk in on.
It really is. It really is. There is nothing better than pulling off a love-themed storyline, and a flirt is the best way to do that. So I get it. It can be weird and awkward sometimes. With that specific girl, I played the character that she ended up falling in love with and had plenty of romantic conversations with her at a table with her husband sitting 3 feet away. It's just we both knew it wasn't that, Right now, I'm game mastering a pirate game. I have one player who is very romantically entangled with a lady character who I'm playing. so I have to have those conversations. Like, it goes both ways. Are you ready for my wild card?
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's see what you got.
My wild card is one of the most frustrating wild cards that I've ever had to deal with in my life. And that is the wild card that is the comedy gamer, is what I'm going to call them. And these are the people who want to do the funniest thing at all times. Like, they watched, the RPG, they watched all the RPG sketches with the eating Cheetos and all that, and that's what they're there for. They're there to make everybody giggle. They're there to make everybody laugh, and they're trying to do that with their character. I have a really hard time with this. I love comedy. I love to laugh. It's something I like to do. But when somebody sits down and makes a dumbass character just to make a dumbass character, it drives me nuts. And I have a really hard time with these players. I've played with these players before. A player who isn't really taking the game seriously, who's more there to be like, ha ha ha, look at this, I made this guy.
Right.
It is very hard to get them into the storyline and get them involved and caring about things. Yeah, that's always frustrating for me.
That is, I get that. That is a tough one. And they come in slightly different forms and fashions. I think the comedy aspect is obviously always there, but like sometimes it's a character that the character themselves just has something absurd about them. Like I don't know, there's a mark on their face that looks like a guy taking a piss or something stupid.
Yes, yes.
Or sometimes it's something completely different, and the character maybe seems like a completely normal, typical, RPG character, but is always saying something stupid at a weird time or goofy at a weird time, and everybody laughs. That's another way. Like the acting aspect gets really goofy and comical.
It's hard to put them in scenes because of this. And it's like, what is your motivation here? Because the character is usually so crazy that it's like there's no motivation. Like I can't give you anything. I can't reward you. I can't like make you get involved in the storyline because you're just here to make people laugh. I hate it when people play characters like that. I had a guy play a role-playing game, a wrestling role-playing game, where his character was Cowbay. He was a wrestler that was just like dressed like Matthew McConaughey, but like really short. And that was it. That was all of his character. Was that he was going to talk with this accent and he was going to be a stupid stripper. And I'm like, okay, I understand wrestling's crazy, but like you have to give me more than that. Like you have to give me something to work with, like other than this, like why does he wrestle? Why does he fight people? Why is he like? What is the motivation behind this? I've had a lot of characters where it's just like this character was made to be a joke. Like I made a character like, look at this, I made a doctor who does cocaine or something like that, and it's just like it's very hard even as a player for me when I'm playing with characters at that table because I don't know how to approach them because I'm taking it serious. Not in the way that I can't like laugh or anything, but my character is serious. So how the hell do I play with this person who just does not even care,
Yeah. So there's a couple of tricks that I do sometimes when it comes to those types of characters. That it's a little situational and it depends on a little bit on what they're spending their time making goof off jokes the most at. One of the big ones for me is asking questions within gameplay from an NPC to that character. And so let's say this character is just nothing but jokes all the time. Run into a situation where an NPC of any sort of type can just start picking at that character and asking them a shit ton of questions. The reason why this sometimes works is it forces that player to reevaluate within the moment that character's motivation, and it kind of puts them a little bit on the spot, but in a fun way. You're not like trying to like put the player on the spot. You're putting the character on the spot, and you're kind of even giving them an opportunity to be comical, but they still within the lines of your question, of your motivation. So if you're asking them very serious questions, they have to work really hard to find a way to make that funny. So sometimes they'll just answer. They can't do it because, they just can't. You can't make that kind of question. Why are you like laughing at my parents' death? Asks young Bruce Wayne, or whatever, and they can't make that question funny. And so now they have to shift to a different perspective, and that forces them into a different mindset at that moment. And it's a character moment, and it allows them to add for a character and then add to their character's complexity. But that works for more social engagements. If they're more of a goofball in like the slapstick way. They're constantly physically doing something. Like they're the type of character that will like try to blow themselves out of a cannon to get across the gorge.
Right.
You know,
Right.
less social, more slapstick. Um, give them a skill challenge that forces them to work and be more, build oriented, I guess, in that moment. They can still be goofballs, but they're going to have to figure it out. They have to
Right.
think. They have to elevate that skill of like knowing their character's abilities in order to pull that off. And that allows them to grow depth within their character organically within gameplay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good call. It's a good call.
That's how I've typically handled them.
That's a good call.
I
have a very hard time handling them. Like, I'm not gonna lie, they are a weak spot for me, without a doubt. So, good advice all the way around. I think we've covered it though, man. I think we're done.
I think so too. I think we've nailed it. These are some of the archetypes, fun challenges and accomplishments for all of our archetypes, all the type of people that you end up seeing at your table, and the characters that they like to play and why they like to play. Before we get out of here, Zach, do you got any plugs you want to throw out there?
I do, actually. Obviously, this is coming back, which is wonderful, but we also, probably when this is up, there'll already be an episode of it, but Ordo Scriptorium's second half of Season 2, The Second Hunt, is finally releasing. We finally finished it, got back on it, and it is done. So that will be coming out the next 3 weeks. There should be, it's episode 4, 5, and 6. 4 should already be out when this goes up. Me and Wiz haven't landed on an exact release date for this yet, but I'm pretty sure it'll be after that. And then there'll be 2 more, which finish it off. And I'm going to tell you, it's a doozy, man. Some stuff happens at the end of that second hunt that may change the entire landscape for Hunt 3. Well, actually, it does. I can assure you it changes the entire landscape for Hunt 3. Other than that, on the TTRPG side, you can do all of this stuff. You can find all of this stuff on Wizard's website as well, which I'm sure he is about to plug, so I'm not going to step on his toes with that. But we are coming back with some TTRPG stuff. Again, it's going to be slower drip than it was before, but we've got Astral Drive scheduled to get some more of that out there. And then I'm hoping to schedule some Season 2 of ID at some point in the future, because I don't want to just let that one go. Other than that, that's it. You can find out all my stuff on the YouTube channel, and I also do video game stuff, and you can also check us out on Blue Sky.
Yeah, and so with Wizards Respite, please watch, listen. WizardsRespite.com is also where you can find all of these shows. You can find articles that I've written, and I have other writers that have jumped in as well as T-shirts. I'm got a bunch of T-shirts on there. They're all like TTRPG or fantasy themed. I got my sword T-shirt on right now. It's the Moon Sword. A lot of this kind of stuff. So if you feel like wearing your hobby, that's definitely a place to go. And yeah, I think that's gonna sum it up for this episode. Everybody out there. Until next time, keep rolling them dice.